Mike Woodson and the Indiana basketball program brought in the best transfer portal class in the offseason out of the Big Ten this year, but they seem to still be slept on.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers. You are the reason this show exists. You're also the reason that this show is doing so well. So thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day, whether you're on video or whether you're on an audio podcasting platform. Want to talk about the transfer portal additions for Indiana basketball. And I bring this up because 247 Sports did a really, really good breakdown of all of the incoming transfers in the Big Ten this season. Yes, all 18 teams in the Big Ten, okay? They did a really good job of breaking down every single addition through the transfer portal to the conference and talking about those expectations. And while they said some good things about the Indiana players, it just doesn't seem that people are giving this class some respect. And I call it a class, kind of comparing it to a high school recruiting class. I guess that's what we're going to call it nowadays, is the transfer portal class. But look, it's no secret. Just look at it and break it down. The Hoosiers brought in the best portal class in the offseason. It's that easy. Just admit it if you're not an Indiana person. And the reason I say that it's the best class is because the Hoosiers added the most potential and added the most help to this roster. And what I mean by that is the fact that this team and this program brought in 3 starters on this year's roster, because I still believe that Cannon Carlisle will start, or he has starting potential anyway. Myles Rice is going to be your starting point guard, and Oumar Ballo, the 7-footer from Arizona, is going to be your starting center, who's replacing Khalil Ware that just left for the NBA draft. Okay, you bring in 3 guys that are probably going to start this year alongside Luke Goody and Langdon Hatton, 2 guys that are going to be key rotational pieces. So out of those players you bring in, how is that not the best class? And I'm not hating on other teams and other programs. Look, there's some teams that brought in really, really good players. I look at Maryland, who brought in Gillespie. I look at Michigan. That's the team I think that can compare to Indiana in terms of teams that have the best portal class this offseason, at least in the Big Ten. I think Indiana competes for the top portal class in the country. But, man, you forget that Michigan brought in Danny Wolf, Roddy Gale, and Trey Donaldson, the Auburn point guard. Man, that Michigan roster is completely redone. That's a team that was horrible a year ago that will be competing in the Big Ten this season. And Ohio State brings in Michi Johnson and Aaron Bradshaw from Kentucky. So they have an argument to make too. I just don't think that anybody touches what Indiana has done. Michigan, again, is the only one that I would give a little more love to and compare with the Hoosiers. But I just feel that when you go get a starting 7-footer in Oumar Ballo, you get a starting point guard in Myles Rice, and you bring in Cannon Carlisle, who, again, I think is going to start at the shooting guard spot. There's still a handful of people that think it could be Trey Galloway, and guess what? It very well could be. But you bring them in not just from anywhere, but from Power 5 schools. You bring them in, I guess Power 4 now, RIP to the Pac-12, but you bring these guys in and they're going to make a difference. They're going to be superstars on your team, on top of Langdon Hatton from Bellarmine, right? And you bring in Luke Goody from Illinois, another Power 5, Power 4 team, right? You bring 3 from what was the Pac-12, 1 from the Big Ten. That's what you want to do. You're not just finding Joe Blows out in the woods. You're bringing in dudes that are legitimate players who, yes, they left their former school and program, but they're good players from their former schools and programs. And so altogether, I just think you're going to see such a step up from a year ago from this Indiana squad, given what you lost, whether it be the draft or the transfer portal or graduation, and what you're bringing in. The difference from last year to what this year's going to be because of the portal additions is why I put us at the top. Now, don't get me wrong. Bringing back Mackenzie Mbako for his sophomore season, bringing back Malik Reneau for another year, who really could have done whatever he wanted to, and bringing back Trey Galloway as a super senior, a guy who's been here for a while, that will make you better too. But those guys were on the team a year ago. Now, do I think that Malik Reneau and Mackenzie Mbako will be better versions of themselves this year? Well, yeah, absolutely. I think they're going to be superstars. But the portal additions is what's going to make this team so special. I think it's what's going to make this team competing in the Big Ten to win the Big Ten regular title and also making a run in March. That's what I think is the difference here. That's why I think Indiana brought in the best portal class, because you can go out and get good players. You can get big names. They can come from big name programs. But if they don't benefit you and your team, then you're just bringing in a body. You're just saying you did it to get some clicks and to get the media attention. I also think that these particular players, they filled the needs of what the Hoosiers needed. We got who we wanted. We got a point guard because we needed a point guard. Xavier Johnson is gone, even with the love-hate relationship that you guys had with him. You bring in Cannon Carlisle. Why? Because Mike Woodson wasn't satisfied with what Trey Galloway brings you. And he's only one person. You got to have a backup regardless, so they went and got him. Then you go and replace your now NBA center, Khalil Ware, with another 7-footer and Oumar Ballo. You did what you needed to do, and you got exactly who you wanted to. On top of Luke Goody and Langdon Hatton, who are going to just kind of fill the voids as they see fit, as Mike Woodson sees fit. It could be Hatton down low as a big 5 or a big 4 off the bench. It could be Goody as a 3 or a 4. You bring in a couple of those flex guys too, and I think that really is going to benefit this team this season and make them one of the best teams in the Big Ten. I just think that's what you've done in this offseason. There's some other great classes. There's some other great players that went other schools or to other schools and other programs, but the Indiana Hoosiers, don't let it be fooled. Don't be fooled. Don't listen to these people. The Hoosiers brought in the best class, and it's hands down in the Big Ten, the best portal class and the best portal additions that anybody did in this offseason. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, I want to rank these portal players for you. The guys I've been talking about, where do I put them? How do I feel where they are in terms of 1 through the bottom? And they're all good. I have great things to say about them all. There are some things we could talk about and they could fix as well. But in terms of their impact and their potential for Indiana this season, I'll have that for you coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or, your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are free and available as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, so we appreciate you being here. And to all of my everydayers, thank you so much. And if you would like to become an everydayer, if you're on YouTube, like the video, comment down below, and then also subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're on the audio side of things, be sure you follow, turn on notifications, whatever you got to do on your platform to where you never miss a new episode. Well, we're talking about these portal additions that Mike Woodson and the Indiana staff made this season for the basketball team. And while I've said it's the best class that Indiana has brought in, that any team has brought in, let's rank these guys on based off of where they are and what they're going to do for this Indiana team. And I think a lot of people are going to be similar on this. And I've had this in the past, and I wanted to kind of revisit this because these conversations are being brought up again, and they are something that we will continue to talk about as we move towards the start of the season on November 6th. And starting at the bottom and moving our way up doesn't mean they're bad, doesn't mean I don't like them. It's just kind of where I stand with the guys that Indiana brought in. And I am going to go with Langdon Hatton at the bottom for now, okay? The Bellarmine transfer who could be a 5, could be a 4. He's a big dude. He can shoot the ball, but he's going to have to kind of work on his game just a little bit. He can handle the basketball, which is nice. He can, I'm not going to say orchestrate the offense, but he can at least manage and handle himself if he finds himself with the ball up top at the point, at the key. And so I think he's somebody that is just going to be a developmental piece. Can he be good? Absolutely. Can he help Indiana be better? You bet. But I don't think anybody's going into the season saying, man, Langdon Hatton's going to be the man. He's going to be the X factor. I just don't think that's the case just yet. I hope he develops into that, and I hope he becomes that. But until we see a little bit more of what we're going to get from the Bellarmine transfer, I've got him at the bottom, and there's really no disrespect there. Again, until I see a little bit something here at this level, we're just going to have to wait and see. I'll go to the other similar type player, the Illinois transfer, Luke Goody, who you bring him in 7'6" as a wing. I'm really excited about him and what he brings in terms of just elevating this team off the bench. He won't be a starter, okay? He will not be a starter, but he's going to be like a starter when he comes off the bench because he's going to have the energy, the firepower, the athleticism, the defense, the shooting. He's got it all to be a starter. And, you know, there are some people that have sort of questioned why Luke Goody came to the Hoosiers when he could have gone somewhere else and maybe started, right? But he came here to Bloomington because he understands what he could be a part of. He understands how good this team can be, and most importantly for him, how he could develop and fit into this system. And I think you're going to see that this year with Luke Goody and this Indiana basketball program. He's going to be able to kind of move around and kind of play multiple positions. He can play the 3. He could play the 4. If he had to, he could handle the ball as a guard-ish. I'm not saying play pure guard. I'm just saying if he found himself in that situation, outlets and, you know, outnumbered situations and things like that, where you could kind of push it up and you would trust him with the ball in his hands, right? He's going to shoot it. He'll crash the glass a little bit. And I like his length and athleticism to be a solid defender. I think he can improve there. There's no doubt about it. I think he could be more aggressive outside of shooting. And that's why I put him at this 4 spot because, you know, his potential is extremely high. And I think he has made and will make Indiana basketball better, plain and simple. And he could be an X factor guy. That's why I'm excited about him. That's why I put him above Hatton, because I do believe he could be an X factor. I do believe you could bring him in and he could be the spark, and everybody goes, oh crap, here comes Luke Goody. Now we got to watch out. Now we got to be ready. Or they'll figure it out the hard way when he comes in and kind of lights people up. So I think Luke Goody is going to be phenomenal. I put him above Langdon Hatton, but I do put him below Cannon Carlisle, okay? I put him below Cannon Carlisle, who I have at the 3 spot. All right, I put him at 3 because I like Cannon Carlisle a lot. I like him so much, I've continued to tell you, my everydayers know this, that I believe he'll be the starting 2. I think he will be your shooting guard starting this season. And to be completely honest, I think that's what he deserves. I think that's what's fair, right? I think that you don't go and get a player like Cannon Carlisle. You don't bring him in from a Pac-12 team, from another Power 4 school, to put him on the bench. And I don't think he would agree to do that willingly. I think he understands how good he is, the potential he has, the fact that as a starting guard on this team, he can fill a void that, we needed to be lifted so desperately from a year ago. And I'll say it. I think he's better than Trey Galloway. I think he's just a better player than Galloway. Is he a better shooter at him and Galloway's peak? No, Galloway's a fantastic shooter when he's on. But how many games did we get that last year? 2, 3 tops? I mean, yes, he single-handedly almost won us the Kansas game, but we didn't win. And you never saw that type of performance from him again. I'm just not feeling that anymore. I'm going to have him come off the bench, be a spark, be a leader, be a guy, a voice in the locker room, and I'm going to go start Cannon Carlisle, who I brought in to be my man. I think he's going to be a guy who can just do it all. You're going to see his skill and his athleticism and his IQ with the ball in his hands. I think that's something people aren't talking about enough is he may be a 2, but he can very easily play the 1. And I think you'll see situations where he does play the 1, where he will be your point guard when Myles Rice takes a seat and him and Galloway could run at the same time and things like that. So Carlisle's upside is so good, and so many other programs wanted him. That's why I put him in the 3 spot. I do put Myles Rice at 2. I rank him at number 2 in the portal additions for Indiana. I cannot express my excitement about Myles Rice, man. He is going to be so much fun to watch with Oumar Ballo, who I have, of course, at the number 1 spot, because Myles Rice and Oumar Ballo will be able to run that pick and roll, I hope, to perfection. I hope they do what I want them to do. I said they should have been doing it last year with Xavier Johnson and or Trey Galloway with Khalil Ware and or Malik Reneau. You have both of those options, and guess what? You still have Malik Reneau this year, and you've got Oumar Ballo this year as well. Like, you have 4 guys between Rice and Carlisle, and then Reneau and Ballo. The pick and roll should always be there. But who's a maestro in that? It's Myles Rice, your starting point guard for the Indiana Hoosiers, a guy that's just a pure playmaker, man. Defensively, he's solid. He may be, I'm not going to say a liability. He's going to hold his own, but he's not just going to wow you with his defense. But I'm more looking at the true point guard facilitator, the leader, the calming down version of him, where he can just look at somebody like Mackenzie Mbako when he's struggling and say, hey, man, good. You're fine. Chill out. Everything's good. I got you. And that's what Myles Rice will bring you. And then you have Oumar Ballo at the top. I mean, what more can we say about the 7-footer who is a stud on the inside? He's going to have to find a way to shoot free throws a little bit better. He's not going to shoot 3, so let's just go ahead and get that out of the way, unless they find a miracle like they did with Khalil Ware, who I think had a little bit more shooting potential than Ballo does. Don't expect him to be outside the paint very much. That's all I'm going to say. Don't expect Oumar Ballo to be a guy that steps out and pops a 3 at any time, because that ain't going to happen. But defensively, he will be that dude down low. So that's my rankings there. I've got Ballo at 1, Rice at 2, Carlisle 3. I've got Goody at 4, and I have Hatton at 5. But they're all going to bring something interesting, and they're all going to make this team better. That's why I've put this class as the number 1 portal class. That's why it's the best. That's why it sticks out to me and to a lot of people, but not enough people, in my opinion. I can't wait for these guys to get on the floor with the guys that are coming back, which is where we're heading next here on Locked On Hoosiers. How are they all going to gel? How are they going to fit in with this system and the other players? We'll have that for you in our final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on the show. Again, appreciate you being here and making this your first listen each and every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast, audio-wise. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we're always free there as well. Well, how is everybody going to fit in terms of the new transfer portal additions? Bryson Tucker as a freshman, the guys coming back. I mean, that's a legitimate and important question, right? You look at all these players and you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of potential on this Indiana roster, but are they going to play well with others, right? Are they going to play well together? And I'm not talking about their personalities and things like that, because let's be real, we don't really know a whole lot of that yet. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything or been told anything about, I guess, negatively about, oh, these guys don't get along or these guys hate each other, whatever. I haven't heard or seen anything like that. So that's not where I'm going here. I'm saying with these portal additions, how will they step in to their new roles? Because as I said, I think you have 3 new starters. That's a lot to add in a basketball season. And you bring back 2 players who were 2 of your 3 go-to guys a year ago with Mackenzie Mbako and Malik Reneau. You lose Khalil Ware, who was one of your go-tos, but you replace him with another go-to. And that's what one of the actual issues I think this team is going to deal with is designating who the go-to guys are and designating the shooters and the playmakers and the facilitators and the scorers. And you have to figure out who that's going to be, because think about all these players, man, in their own right. And I'm looking at the starters in particular. They could all be ball hogs. They could all be ball dominant if they wanted to be. You're telling me that Myles Rice couldn't go out and drop 20 points every night and just be the man on a terrible losing team? Cannon Carlisle's the same way as a shooting guard who I think is just going to tear people up with the basketball in his hands. Mackenzie Mbako, we all expect him to make a huge jump this year by shooting, dribbling, and scoring and playmaking on the inside. Malik Reneau and Oumar Ballo are the same way. They could say, hey, give me the ball and get out of the way. Feed me on the block and nobody touch me. I'm going ISO and I'm going to score on this guy. They could all be that way if they really wanted to. That's what the summer's about. Heck, that's what early non-con plays about. We had an episode about that a little bit yesterday in terms of the battle for Atlantis. We'll have one coming up for you tomorrow about the entire non-con schedule. But they're going to have to figure that out and establish roles, not just who's playing the 2 and who's playing the 4. I'm saying, okay, in this situation, this person's going to be getting the ball. And in this situation, we're going to run a play for this guy. And all of that has to be figured out. And you hope, if you're Mike Woodson and this staff, you hope that all of that plays out nicely. You hope that all of that works out in the way that you expected it to when you brought these guys in, which is why you brought these particular players in. You don't go to the transfer portal and just try to find the best ones out there and hope that it works out. Sure, you want the top talent, but you also want guys that are going to fit your system that you run. I think all of these guys do. I think Ballo is going to fit well in a pick and roll, rebounding and giving you extra possessions. I think Myles Rice, Cannon Carlisle, with the freedom they'll have as guards, will work really well. And then even with Goody and Hatton, they'll be their bigger guards, forwards types of players. I think the system works extremely well. But you also go after guys with the personality traits and the work ethic and the mindset that will fit with your current players. You can't tell me that Mike Woodson didn't talk to Trey Galloway and Reneau and Mbako about the type of players that they wanted to play with, who they liked, who they didn't like, what worked last year and what didn't work last year, and what they believe will work moving forward. That's all part of the transfer portal, man. You don't just go and start picking and plugging and chugging until something works. You can't afford to do that, especially in basketball where you only have a handful of spots and a handful of scholarships. This ain't football. You can't take a chance on that 4-star corner in the portal and just hope it works. Like, you can't afford to do that money-wise and scholarship-wise. And so you literally hand pick these guys to fit your program. And I think Mike Woodson did a fantastic job here. Now, we could very easily get into the season and figure out, okay, well, that Cannon Carlisle dude, that didn't work. That was a disaster. That was a terrible idea. And now we know. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you just never know. That's why it's important to look into, okay, how are they going to gel? How are they going to fit? And I hope we start to get some more insight on that from Woodson himself. We will once the practices get going, once we get closer to that exhibition on November 1st, and then ultimately the opening game on November 6th. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you all so much, man. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on your audio platform. Make sure you're an everydayer, okay? There's no reason you should be anywhere else than right here at Locked On Hoosiers. Make this your first listen each and every day. You won't regret it. I promise you that. Until tomorrow, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.